The following is a project of our nonprofit newsroom. Support Midcoast Morning and local community-centered journalism today by signing up to be a monthly sustaining donor at chly.ca/donate.
Hello and welcome to Midcoast Morning. I'm Joe Pugh. Upgrades to Nanaimo's transit service have kicked in this week. This year we'll see 8,700 more hours of service on Nanaimo routes. 5,000 of those hours are on the newly renamed Route 1 Nanaimo Rapid Line, which goes between the Woodgrove Centre and Downtown. Darren Marshall, Senior Manager for Transportation Services with the Regional District of Nanaimo, says the goal is to make that route the spine of the transportation network.
We're trying to establish that route as a rapid line. So the difference between a rapid line and a frequency route is the rapid line has less stops, bus stops on the route. So they both might have the same frequency up to every 15 minutes, but a rapid line has less stops. And so we're trying to establish that as the spine of the network, and then feeding in with the regional and frequent routes to move people in a linear pattern as quickly and efficiently as possible.
With the name change, the old Route 1, the Country Club, is now Route 72. 2,700 of the new service hours are on an intercity route going from the Woodgrove Centre to Parksville and Qualicum Beach. Marshall spoke about efforts more broadly to connect Nanaimo's transit system to other communities on Vancouver Island.
In the fall of 2024, we introduced a small increase to our Route 99 Deep Bay in the north, and Comox Valley Regional District, in partnership with BC Transit, established a route that would come down to meet our 99 Deep Bay and exchange passengers for an intra-regional service that connected to our communities in the north, which complements our interregional service that goes from downtown Nanaimo to downtown Duncan, which is referred to as the 70 NCX, Nanaimo Couch and Express. And that allows people to connect all the way to Victoria from the regional district of Nanaimo.
The other 1,000 new hours are part of a restructured route to Lantzville. The service increases are part of the regional district of Nanaimo's transit redevelopment strategy. Darren Marshall spoke with me about that plan.
This is a 5-year build-out of our transit system. Its intention is to add 73,500 hours to the system, which is approximately a 56% increase to our transit system.
Marshall says the RDN has already put the ask in to BC Transit for an even bigger increase in service hours for 2026.
Next year, through the BC Transit, it's referred to as the TIPS, which is Transit Improvement Program. We've requested, and the board has approved this request for 16,100 annual service hours.
Marshall outlined some of the areas those increased hours would go to if approved by BC Transit.
On primary routes, we would be operating at 20 minutes or better during weekday peak periods, 30 minutes at other times. The number 1 rapid line would evolve again. The number 2 VIU line would streamline the existing Route 40 and offer additional 10-minute peak service during school in months.
He says the RDN should find out in March whether or not its plans for expansion in 2026 will be approved.
The request is for January of 2026. However, we have yet to be informed that we've been approved for those hours. Generally, we hear from BC Transit by the end of March that we're approved or denied the hours, and then we start our planning process accordingly.
Turning back to this year's increases in service, Lewis James is celebrating. He's a member of community advocacy organization Strong Towns Nanaimo, and he joined me in the CHLY studio.
My name's Lewis James. I'm a writer for Strong Towns Nanaimo. I've been a resident of Nanaimo for 6 years. I went to university here. I work as a refugee housing worker now in the city. I love it here. It's beautiful.
And how are you feeling about these changes to the bus system that have taken effect this week?
Yeah, I'm stoked is what I am. I was nerding out about it. I was watching it go by my office like every 20, 40 minutes. And I was trying to see how many people were on it, because it's a huge change for the city. And it's really representative of a first big step that our city has been and our regional district has been working on for quite a while to really improve the transit connectivity of a very disconnected and sprawled out city.
So the biggest change, most of the new hours added are to the one express bus going along from Woodgrove Centre to downtown. Maybe zooming out, you mentioned Nanaimo's a bit of a big city. That's something that our mayor brings up often in conversations. How would you rate the transit system in general?
People like to be, I think, quite negative about the transit system here in Nanaimo. I'm originally from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. It has a metro area about the same population as Nanaimo. We have 2 buses that go in a circle around the city, and they come every about 2 hours, and they don't run on weekends, and they don't run at night. So in that context, for me, actually, I found Nanaimo to be a really representative of a city that is building up and is really trying to provide a service to people who don't own a car.
I'm wondering, maybe that idea of people sometimes complain about the bus in Nanaimo. I'm wondering if there is like a point that the system needs to get to where people are going to take the bus, not because they need to take it because they don't have a car, but because they might say, hey, instead of driving, I can like read a book on this and it's not that expensive and I don't have to wait too long, where it's like good enough that they'll want to ride it. Yeah,
I mean, everybody's story about why they're not taking transit is different. Some people just can't. Some people live in places, accessibility wise, where driving is their only option. And we've really built Nanaimo in that way, or many parts of Nanaimo in that way. At the same time, I think to highlight some benefits, like you were saying, driving is dangerous. I drive a car. I will acknowledge that. But it is dangerous. And there are many people in our community, like many people, who cannot drive. Driving is just not an option. If you're below the age of 16, driving is not an option. Many seniors age out of their driver's licenses. Driving is not an option for them. So when we're celebrating things like transit expansion, we're also celebrating an expansion of accessibility for our residents. While it may not directly affect a driver or doesn't feel like it does, the better our transit system gets, the more people getting out of their cars and maybe opting every once in a while to hop on the bus takes one person out of a car and at the same time off the parkway during rush hour, potentially. And I think these are the benefits that people could see, lower stress travel for sure. But also you experience the city, I think, in a different way. For me, sometimes I choose to take the bus because I get to interact with my community in a way that I think not many people recognize the bus as an opportunity for doing. It allows you to see people that are different from you. And I think from a social perspective, for myself personally, it's quite good. you see people of, different cultural backgrounds, different social backgrounds. And I think that's a good thing, that we should interact, in the public space, and the bus is a public space.
Do you have any like Nanaimo bus stories where you've gone on the bus and that's happened and you've made some connection with people?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, meeting acquaintances all the time, I think we rely a lot on social media to do this for us, but actually like bumping into people on the bus and just having a quick 30-second chat with someone and catching up is like a really cool thing to be able to do. It's not a weird text over the phone. It's you're sitting next to them on the bus and you're just waiting for your stop, and you get to have a really positive social interaction. I work with many newcomers to the city. None of them can drive. They all take the bus. And so for me in my work, it's also a cool time to bump into them and to hear about, how their story of making Nanaimo home is going for them. And that for me is incredible. I think everybody's experience will be different, but I think the bus is an incredible social amenity and a social space that I think if more people took the time to recognize, they could find a sense of joy.
As someone who, it sounds like, uses the bus rather regularly, rather frequently, are there things that you would change about the experience?
Yeah. I mean, always. I mean, there's always more things we can do to improve our transit system. The article we wrote for Strong Towns was trying to recognize the good stuff that's on the way. So I think a lot of people like to, have their gripe about what's not good right now about the bus system. And what we were trying to point out in the article is that the numbers being put up for expanding transit weren't quite everything we had originally hoped for. A part of that was because of COVID. Things got delayed. Another part is that the province gives us more transit hours when we have more transit riders. And really, the article was also supposed to be a call to action that if we really want our bus system to be better, obviously more frequent. I think that's the number one complaint anyone could say about the buses here is you can't rely on them. You can't just stroll out to a bus stop and expect your bus to come. You have to check your phone. You have to stress out. You have to scramble. You have to time it right. It's threading the needle. If you miss it, are you going to wait another hour? That causes stress and, unreliability. But it's almost a chicken or an egg issue, right? Because if you're not willing to take the bus when it comes every 30 minutes, would you come if it came every 15? Yeah, maybe. But if the only way we can get the bus going to 15 minutes is if you start to be willing to take it at 30 minutes, well, this is the challenge we tried to pose. Maybe you don't have to take the bus every day, but if you start opting to take it every once in a while, try it out, go out with friends, but instead of driving, take the bus. Yeah, we can make our transit system better. I think giving it a shot is the start. And with the transit hour expansions, it's a good time to get on the bandwagon as our buses are slowly starting to get more frequent.
And this is only the start, maybe. I was speaking with someone from the RDN earlier today, and they were talking about they've got a proposal. So for context, this year, 8,700 new hours of service. Next year, they're asking for 16,000 new hours of service. What do you make of some of the plans for beyond this year?
I think they're incredible. Anybody who's interested in it, I highly recommend reading the regional district's plan, the transit future plan for our region. It's a beautiful transit-rich future if we can make it happen. And I think looking towards those things and being excited about those things makes me super happy to hop on the bus today, knowing that doing so is creating a future that is transit rich, provides opportunities to all of our residents to get around, not just those in cars, and will truly really improve the quality of life for many Nanaimo residents. Like, I don't think people think about, what if on Sunday at 8 p.m. your local government told you couldn't drive your car anymore? Like, that's a dystopian society right there. But that's the reality for anyone who has to take the bus. Like, these are realities for many of our Nanaimo residents. And we're denying them a certain quality of life when we aren't providing the service hours and frequencies that many people in Nanaimo need to get to work, to pick up their kids. And when I look at the transit future plan, I think that's something to be jazzed about. I think it's awesome to think of how people's lives could really actually change from this document.
It sounds almost like you view, when you hop on the bus to go to any particular place, like you're not just thinking of this will get me to where I need to go, but you're describing it as like a political act with consequences.
Yeah, I mean, there's like the old phrase that like you vote with your dollar, right? I think we vote with our feet too, or we vote with the way we get around. I'm not saying, you should forego the life of driving and live a life of penance on the bus. Like, no, if driving is the most convenient option for you, maybe you have kids, maybe you have a disability that prevents you from getting around feasibly where you live, because maybe there's no sidewalks, right? Driving's fine. But what I think is, many people don't take the bus because they had like one bad experience, or the bus didn't come exactly when they wanted to. It takes a certain decision to find a different value in your commute. And I think for myself, maybe it's a couple more minutes to get to my work every morning, but that time I create a different value in it. And I think many people who take the bus would tell you this. So yeah, I'm not sure if I would call it a political act, but it's an act of social engagement, of community engagement. And I think when we're in our cars, we're mad when someone cuts us off. We don't see, the person in the story inside the car in front of us. When we're on the bus, you're only seeing people, right? Maybe someone smells, right? And you don't like that. There are people who smell in this world, and, we shouldn't, be mad at those people. Maybe they don't know. I think it's important as a community to experience these spaces together and really value it. And I guess that's what I'm trying to say, is that there's value in these things. It's not like those poor people on the bus.
Midcoast Morning is made possible by the Community Radio Fund of Canada and generous listeners like you. Support and grow our nonprofit newsroom project today at chly.ca/donate with a monthly or one-time donation. With your support, we can expand Midcoast Morning from 2 to 3 original programs per week to cover local news, current affairs, and arts and culture.
This week saw the first of 8,700 new hours of transit service in Nanaimo. Most of that is along a rapid line from the Woodgrove Centre to downtown. There's also increased service between the Woodgrove Centre and Parksville, as well as a newly restructured route to Lantzville. I welcomed Lewis James to the studio to talk through the changes and to talk about taking the bus in Nanaimo. He's a member of community advocacy group Strong Towns, and he wrote an article for them on the subject earlier this week. I want to come back to this idea of if there are people out there who don't have anything against riding the bus, they just think it's not super convenient, and they would maybe even like to see bus service improved in Nanaimo. You've talked already about the easiest way to advocate for that is just to ride the bus. But beyond that, are there ways that people can contribute to the service being improved?
Absolutely. You could write letters to our MLAs. So George Anderson and Sheila Malcolmson, write them letters. Tell them your story on the bus. Tell them why the bus is important to you, or why you want the bus to be better in our city, and how it could really improve our lives. If you're a student at VIU, we're one of the only major universities in British Columbia that doesn't have a U-Pass, which is basically a built-in automatic enrollment into an incredibly discounted bus pass through your student union. Right now, we have semester passes, which you have to opt into and go purchase. But most universities in BC, UBCO, UVic, pretty much all the universities over in the Lower Mainland, their students all get a bus pass. And the reason we don't have it here primarily is our students aren't asking their student union for it. For some people who aren't able to use the bus, maybe they live in a place where there's no transit access, you can obviously opt out. But for the majority of students, it gives them a bus pass that they can just use for the full semester. It also gives a large chunk of funding to BC Transit, as well as gets people into riding the bus who may not otherwise think of doing it. I think if you're a student at VIU, what you could be doing right now is writing to your student union and asking them the question of why we don't have a U-Pass. The university, I think right now, is going through some transit studies. They've sent out some surveys to students about their ideal way of getting to the university. If you're a student listening to this right now, fill out that survey and tell them you want better buses if you do. That's the biggest way as a student you could be advocating. For the general public, talk to your city councilors, write them emails. It can make a difference. It really can. And they do listen, and they do read your emails.
And writing on this subject for Strong Towns, you also called on people to share positive stories around transit and about riding the bus, and maybe trying to change the narrative out there, if you will. Can you tell me about that idea?
Yeah, absolutely. So we wrote our article to kind of celebrate the change that's happening in our region in regards to transit improvements. But too often, I think our newspaper loves to talk about the contention people feel around transit. While there are so many people silently using transit every single day as a public amenity that allows them to get to work, or to go pick up their kids from school, or to buy groceries, or to hang out with friends. If you want to share those stories with us, you can go to our website, Strong Towns Nanaimo, at beautifulnanaimo.ca. Or you can hashtag Strong Towns Nanaimo on Instagram. We just love to see your stories and really get out the word that, we are people who are using transit, and we have a voice, and we're here to advocate for a better transit future for our city.
Is there anything else you think it's important to bring to people's attention with these new changes and increased service coming to buses this week?
It takes time. It's not easy work. The people who have been working on this have been working on this for years. They're really trying hard. There's so many loops they have to jump through. And when the community is on board and the community is supporting them, their job becomes a lot easier. That doesn't mean they always make the right decisions, and we should always be critical. But I think having an understanding for the intense complexity of the work that these planners are working on, while also advocating for better systems. There's a tension there, recognizing their work is good, always asking for more, and always wanting our system to be better, but in a positive way, not through criticism and through animosity, but through seeking to understand and then still sharing your story because it has value.
Well, Louis, thank you so much for coming down to the studio to speak with me.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And yeah, for anyone who wants to get involved in our city and to share your voice, feel free to check out our website, Strong Towns Nanaimo, beautifulnanaimo.ca, or just start writing letters and taking the bus.
Louis James is a member of the community advocacy group Strong Towns Nanaimo. That's our show for the day. Thank you for joining me. I'm Joe Pugh, host and producer of Midcoast Morning. Jesse Woodward is our executive producer, and RB Frew is our technical advisor. You can sign up for CHLY's newsletter at chly.ca/subscribe. Our theme song is First One by local Nanaimo band Waste Management. If you have a story you'd like us to cover, email us at news@chly.ca. That's all for now. I'll talk to you on another Midcoast Morning.
Midcoast Morning would not be possible without the funding of the Community Radio Fund of Canada's Radio Meters program and listeners like you. Midcoast Morning is a project of CHLY's nonprofit newsroom. Support nonprofit journalism in Nanaimo and on the Salish Sea today by becoming a monthly sustaining donor at $5 or more per month. Support the program at chly.ca/donate. If you're already a supporter, record a voice memo telling others where you're listening from and why they too should support our work. After you're done, you can email it to us. Also, share the podcast with your friends. While Meta is blocking Canadian users from sharing news content on their Facebook feeds, you can still share our podcast directly with your friends via Facebook or Instagram Messenger. Finally, this program acknowledges and gives thanks to the Nanaimo First Nation as we broadcast and podcast from their traditional territory. Thanks for listening.